Thank you, Bo. Well, that concludes the presentations and open the floor for questions. Now it's your chance. Yes, Chris. Oh, Nick. I'm sorry. Yeah, Nick.
There's a proportion of the population that refers to me as Chris. It's a genetic. It's inherited from my grandfather.
Thank you.
So I don't. It's not your problem. It's a standing wave. On the theme of integrity, it's very.
Sorry. May I invite our keynote and the panelists here so that you can address questions to them? Yeah.
It's an easy target to put up the layer diagram and claim that the layer diagram is the past. But the layer diagram is an inherent part of the collaborative world that we're living in, the shared knowledge base and the interactions between organizations and people. In trying to define the difference between data and information, Barbara Poor and I present the point of view that data becomes information when people stand behind it. That the data needs support, it needs the integrity that comes from that human arrangement. The layer diagram is a chart of our organizational structures, that we have devolved responsibility by theme. And we have organizations that are structured by theme. And we're not going to undo that. What we're going to do is create those links. The links are the important part, because the links are one organization accepting the information from another organization. So they're not antithetical to the layer diagram. They're an inherent part of that. The layer diagram, when we presented it at AutoCarto 7, and we put it in the public domain, it was a specific piece of Westport Township. It's been redrawn 1 million times, but it was actual data, it was actual people and actual organizations. That layer diagram was a chart of the interactions between those organizations who sat around a table and said, I'll do this if you will do that. And I think that's where the integrity is still going to come from, that the field work we were doing in the 1980s is still valid here. And we shouldn't throw out what we have developed over the past 50 years. And it's easy to throw up that layer diagram and say, oh yeah, that's the way we used to do things. But it's also the structure of our political environment that we're in. And we can't, it isn't our job to undo that. That's, I want to support you in saying that it's the linkages that's what we should be doing. It's just before that, don't throw away the layer model.
Thank you, Nick. I think it's a comment. Li Qiu, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I may, reflect on. I actually do not mean to throw it away. Rather, we want to think beyond that. It's similar to we need both Newtonian system and relativity theory, depending on what kind of scenario we are in. We simply need all the time to critically revisiting what we're used to, and then to think beyond what is still possible. And I believe both layered thinking and linked thinking are needed. And more and more we face wicked problems, and therefore we need to be ready for linked thinking.
Thank you. Me too. Do we have any other question for any of our 4 speakers? I know Nadine is online. So.
I had a question.
Vanessa.
Yes. One, I wanted to say that I think it's really cool to see the variety of things that you talked about and a lot of nuanced and interesting things, including out of the box thinking. And I think to your point, it really does matter to continue to think outside the box because of technology is constantly shifting and so on. I wanted to ask a question about the map diagram that you discussed where you're considering making maps for the users. It was the 3-tiered one. And at the top, you said making the map for the user and then also making sure it is good and that the map is only showing good things and helping the users avoid unhealthy behaviors. And I was just curious what you were defining as unhealthy behaviors as well as what is considered good, because technically those are also ethical questions to be asking. So I was just really curious about that.
Yeah, it seems it's me to reflect on that. Yeah, it's a relative, and that's why I believe it's important to include users right in the beginning of our design loop. And these users are in different target groups, and sometimes they have contradictory values. And therefore, we need to communicate in a non-misunderstanding way for which target user we mean this is good for them. And still, it is not absolute statement. Still, we need to interactively asking whether it's really what they mean. If not, let's try to correct immediately.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Bo, you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Follow up with Dr. Meng, I guess another layer of thinking about this is understanding ethics from a duality of good and bad. So these two things are always coexist together, and how we can better understanding it through like a Gauss-type perspective, how to highlighting the goods, but in the meantime, the bad could somehow fade out to the background, but always rethinking and those two things, and also treating ethical as an evolving issue that we can always reflect upon.
Great, thank you. Nadine, did you want to, I saw you, did you want to respond?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have just a quick comment. I think, again, the timeliness of this, I love the question and the answers, because we have now launched, not us, like many standards organizations have founded a metaverse standards forum. And these issues are bubbling up also big time. And so we have compiled all the issues around the metaverse, right? Whether it's standards and technology and digital assets and, you know, tokens and NFTs and all of that. And the top 5, ethics, integrity came up at the top. So I think this good and bad, you'll see it in us, in the virtual world, and now in this mix of what we're creating in the metaverse, whether it's good or bad. So I think I'm just transposing that conversation also in another context. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nadine. We have time for one last question because we do have a general question for everyone to respond to. Yeah, so last chance for a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, could you check at the online question? Can someone? Okay.
Sure, I'll
Yeah, may I read it?
question. Sure. Oh, go on, please.
Oh yeah, whoever. So thank you. Okay, Dr. Meng, can you speak to how the work you presented on linked geospatial data and semantics might inform research on the spatial dimension of homelessness?
Intuitively, I would regard the spatial dimension of homelessness as it is a spatial dimension, but I can also regard it as a semantic attribute in a knowledge graph. And I will try actually use both a layered and a linked thing to see whether the solutions would converge. If not, what kind of added value in each of the version would produce. That's my intuitive answer.
Yeah, Bo also wants to respond to that.
Yeah, because some of my research is relevant to this perspective, but maybe two quick comments on this. One is it's related because most of the homelessness are measured through the one-night count, which is really highly biased data because it was usually, in the United States, it was calculated in the January, which I guess somehow purposely counted during that time because usually the people who are suffering homelessness are sheltered because January is usually very cold. So how to linking data which was purposely biased by some hierarchical power stakeholder, that's one perspective. Secondly, I guess is how to link data, make those invisible visible. That's another perspective of homelessness because homeless people also suffering like a digital divide by nature. Because, and also I know some homeless people, two homeless people using one cell phone, how we can also identify those kind of issues is another perspective, I guess. So yeah, that's what I can offer.
Yes, David.
Yeah, I've actually worked with the Homelessness Commission in Nashville and used GPS-enabled homeless count. But from an ethical standpoint, homelessness has been criminalized in a lot of communities. And when we talked to the homeless population, said our purpose for mapping your location is so that the city cannot deny that there's homelessness in certain parts of the city so that they can get those services outside of the urban core. But that city also was using the police to raid homeless camps. And so the homeless population said, be very careful with making this data visible because we don't want the police to use it to attack us and, destroy our camps. And so we had to make an ethical promise to the homeless population that we would not make those maps visible to anyone except us.
Thank you so much, everyone. I did see raised hands, but unfortunately, in the interest of time, we have to go to our final question. For our audience, everyone, all the speakers, may I ask you for one takeaway message that you want to deliver to our audience? What might be your the actionable item on top of your list that you would recommend to the professional community? Anyone? Can I start with you, Li Qiu?
I try to, start. I already mentioned in my presentation the importance of education, be it conscious learning or unconscious unlearning. I noticed already some positive development in European universities where they try to integrate ethic issues into curriculum. And I believe ethics is mapping part of the ethics of technology and AI, with emphasis on the role of educators, no longer just teachers. We are co-learners. We do not know better than our students. So in a co-learner platform, we might mutually point out our blind spots and learn together. This could be a new ecosystem, not just for our regular study programs, and it's a kind of lifelong, life-wide learning platform. I would try my best in the remaining of my career to do that as educator and
so adding to the curriculum. Thanks. David, what would be
yes, if we're going to be in the practice of mapping vulnerable populations such as homelessness or environmental justice communities, the population must not just be on the map, they must be active agents in developing the map. I'm working with NASA right now. NASA in the past year has decided to do environmental justice. And so we're working to take their satellite developed models of air quality, et cetera, and incorporate community concerns and issues into those models. And we're just getting started. It's extraordinarily challenging because NASA has not ever done anything like this ever, getting actual human subject data into their models. But we're going to do it, and it'll make them a lot more effective when we try to protect these vulnerable communities from disparities in air quality, flooding, gentrification, and what have you. But the people have to be part of the model building, not just subjects.
Thank you. Yeah, adding the focus on vulnerable population. Thanks. Bo, do you
You
want
want Nadine to?
Yeah, Nadine, either one. Nadine, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Bo. I think we continue to do what we're doing right here, which is raising the awareness and documenting, sharing the best practices from, again, a technical perspective, having this awareness as we develop our solutions. From the data perspective, it's going to go back to how do we capture the metadata, the the reproducible processes, making sure that when we do AI, we have transparent processes. And to me, it's about figuring out ways to capture the technical part. So that's the metadata, fit for use, data quality is very big to lead to data integrity. But also figuring out ways to communicate those assumptions in the data that feed everything in ways that are accessible. And again, reproducible and non-biased.
Thank you. So adding efforts to ensure awareness, right? Thank you. Yes, Bo.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with the education and also empowering the underserved population and how to transfer from the technical rationale to communication rationale, which Nadine has been mentioned. I think for me, I want to point out that it is a time to rethinking about the data liability issue under this so-called post-truth context that because everyone today can be a map user and as well as a map generator. So I think that we need to consider the map ethics along with the map literacy. How to cultivating people with these two perspectives is so important.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know in the interest of what we went, time is out, right? Oh, perfect, almost perfect. Just one more minute. Well, thank you. That's really, we have takeaway messages and we really enjoyed the awesome, outstanding presentations. Thank you so much. May I invite you, all of you, joining me to give an applause to all our speakers. Thank you. This is awesome. Okay, I think it's time for a break, coffee break, and then we'll be back for another session.